Estate planning can be challenging when dealing with unique family dynamics, and even more so in blended families. Avoid creating a situation where your family is fighting over assets. On today's coffee break, Chris Raper and Del Elgersma will share some tips to ensure a smooth estate transfer. Welcome, Chris. Welcome, Del.
Thank you, Sybil.
So, Del, I'm going to start off with you. How is estate planning different for blended families?
Well, with non-blended families, spouses will generally leave everything to each other with the secure knowledge that when the surviving spouse dies, it's all going to go to the kids. In a blended family, that's not the case at all. If you leave everything to your spouse, they have no duty to leave it to your children. They might leave it just to their own children or their other family, and so that's the main difference, I would say.
And there might be some fighting that is caused by that. That's probably not the intention. So what are options for people to prevent that from happening? How do people in blended families protect their own kids?
Well, there's usually two main approaches. There's lots of different techniques that we can use, but usually they fall into two main approaches. One is to have everything owned jointly between the spouses so that the assets pass almost through right of survivorship to the survivor. And then there might be a contract between them that they're going to leave everything to both sides of the family when the last of them dies. That's the most flexible approach, but it's also the least secure for the kids. The other approach would be to perhaps leave assets to your spouse in a trust for the spouse's lifetime, and then when the spouse passes away, they go to the kids. That's the most guaranteed outcome for the children, but also a bit more complex. Right,
but at least it involves something in writing to make sure that wishes are followed, hopefully at the end of the day, because that's what estate planning is all about. Now, Chris, what else should people be considering? I mean, we're talking about transferring assets from one generation to the next, but what's your perspective on that?
I usually start the conversation with people that understanding it from the big picture, there's actually three types of capital we can pass from one generation to the next. The first one is the financial capital, the money, the land, the real estate, that sort of thing. That's obvious. But the more important two are character capital, who your children, who your grandchildren are, what their integrity is like, and the intellectual capital, what your children, your grandchildren know, and how useful those skills are in today's world. If we spend all our time on the financial capital and give no consideration to character or investment in intellectual capital or character capital, we have no hope of the financial capital running from one generation to the next. It's just not going to work.
Wow.
So that's what I encourage people.
And you're right. I think those are even more important, yet they don't get the time and attention they deserve. Everybody focuses on the financial. But when you think about most people as they get up there in age and want to make sure that their legacy lasts and that the financial capital has passed on from generation to generation, that could get destroyed like that without the discussion about character and intellect. Great perspective, Chris. I assume that gets even trickier, though, when dealing with blended families. So do you have any unique suggestions on how to pass that on? Do you have family meetings? Where do people start?
Two things. Again, when you talk about passing the financial assets, a lot of people get bogged down in that they can't see the picture in their mind. So we actually have an exercise, what we call the Bubbles estate planning exercise, that we walk our clients through, and they can see the major assets depending upon which course of action they have and where they're going to go. So that's a great visual, and one we kind of walk people through before they even get to Dell, so they understand kind of what's possible. And the second aspect of it is that these are tough issues to discuss with a blended family. And if we can get all participants bought into the fact that all progress starts with the truth, then we're a long ways to heaven productive discussions going forward.
Easier said than done, I imagine.
Yeah.
And I can think of a few examples popping in my mind where a family discussion and truth just isn't possible. You've got people who really just don't like each other. So Del, in back over to you from the legal perspective, how do you address that? How do you help people make sure their wishes are followed when people can't even agree?
Well, it's just so important that it be documented and that they get professional advice so that their wishes are going to be legally valid and carried out. And it's especially important in BC, where we have a law that allows a disappointed child to go to court to vary a will. So, but even without that, it's really important that the structure is put in place and that it can't be challenged, because often there are dynamics and there will be a challenge if there's an opening for that.
Well, it sounds like everything starts with the conversation, so that's what I encourage our viewers to do. And not sure how to even open that conversation, we do have on our website, thewealthylife.com, we do have a family meeting checklist and some conversation starters that'll help make it easy. So thanks everyone for joining us today. That wraps up our coffee break. See you next time.